Good day, everyone. My name is Linus, and today I'm presenting my research on the team learning behaviors of architecture teams. I will cover 5 sections in this presentation. I start with the research background and methodology before discussing the present study and the current results. I'll then conclude the presentation with the future works. This research is positioned between design and learnings, specifically on reflective practice theory. Since reflective practice was theorized on an individual level, I also looked at the intersection of design and team dynamics to review research opportunities in reflective practice at the team level. This led me to the query, what lies at the intersection of team dynamics and team learning? By reading literature outside the design field, team learning behaviors from organizational psychology became a potential research area that complemented my study on the reflective practices of design teams. This is where my overall research project is positioned, at the intersection of design, team dynamics, and learning. This research project is broken down into 3 phases: a case study to discover the effects of team learning behavior on architecture team performance, a survey to measure the effects of team learning behavior on architecture team performance, and finally, an intervention to improve architecture team performance using team learning behavior. This presentation is about phase 3, the intervention study. The overall research strategy is as follows. There are commonly 4 research strategies: a fixed strategy, which uses theory to establish hypotheses for testing. This is commonly used in experimental research. A flexible strategy, which uses theory to frame the research question. A common example is case study research. And the third, which I did not include here, is a mix of both fixed and flexible strategy. And the fourth is purposeful strategy, which uses presented research problems as a foundation to conduct the research. This is commonly used in pragmatic research, such as action research. This particular study adopts a purposeful strategy. There are 4 common methodologies that are classified under purposeful strategy: evaluation research, which evaluates the effectiveness of a predetermined program; action research, which attempts to change parts of the research problem; intervention research, which examines the strategies used to create change; and implementation research, which studies how participants adopt research findings into their practice. This particular study uses intervention research to develop, document, and share strategies that help solve the research problem. In this pragmatic study, there was no research question, but instead a research problem. A director of an architecture firm shared with me that one of the most challenging problems his firm faces is that his employees waste time doing the wrong things because they don't communicate with each other properly. This problem frustrates his team leaders because work gets delayed, and it also frustrates his team members because efforts get wasted. And he came to the conclusion that if his employees communicated better, they will perform better as a team. Hence, this research looks at developing strategies to improve team communication methods. As mentioned earlier, I adopted the intervention approach to address this problem. In this intervention, I used questionnaires, a workshop, and observations as my data collection methods. The questionnaire was to measure the team learning behavior and team effectiveness before and after the workshop. The workshop was to intervene with how the team works by unpacking the team's problems and finding solutions with them. The observation was to identify any changes in team behavior after the intervention. These 3 points of data sources are used to triangulate and provide deeper insights on the effectiveness of the intervention. I'll now provide context for the study. For the research participants, they were all recruited from one architecture firm in Sydney. These participants range from director all the way to architecture graduates, and there were 16 participants in total. The research started in August and runs for about 12 weeks till mid-November this year. The procedure was to first measure the participants' team learning behaviors pre-intervention, conduct the intervention, observe any changes in behavior on a weekly basis, then a fortnightly basis, and finally measure their team learning behaviors again. After the data collection phase, I'll compare the questionnaire results and use the workshop and observational data to describe any changes. In the questionnaire, I queried their perceptions of the team's team learning behavior, such as how they constructed ideas, co-constructed designs, negotiated conflicts, and learned new tasks. I also queried how they foster team learning, such as how they reflect on processes, tasks, experiment with new workflows, and sort out information. Finally, I queried their perception on their team performance, on how satisfied they were with the team, and how effective they perceived themselves to be. Using a 7-point Likert scale range from strongly agree to strongly disagree, the participants scored questions according to the different concepts. So under the team learning behavior, they scored on concepts of constructing ideas, co-constructing ideas, negotiating conflicts, learning new tasks, and communicating errors. Under fostering team learning, they scored on concepts of reflecting on tasks, on processes, experimenting with workflows, and crossing team boundaries to gather information. Finally, for team performance, they scored on concepts of individual and team satisfaction and team effectiveness. From the results, reflecting on processes and experimenting was scored lowest among all the concepts. Hence, the intervention sought to improve these two qualities of the team, while focusing on team communication as pointed out in the research problem. The workshop adopted a design thinking framework. This meant that the workshop got its participants to first empathize with each other's problems, aggregate and define these problems into one shared problem, ideate on solutions aimed to address the problem, prototype the ideas, and test them out at work. As an iterative process, the participants were also required to reflect and refine their solutions throughout the research. During the empathize stage, the sailboat technique was used to elicit what problems each of the team members perceived as the most detrimental to the team's performance. A collective voting revealed that the lack of asking questions were the team's biggest problem. During the define stage, each member used the 5 whys technique to explore deeper why the team is not asking questions. During the ideation stage, they proposed ideas that may solve the problem, and they used the how might we's and if this was easy, how would it look like prompts to rapidly come up with ideas. Another round of collective voting revealed that the team can be more accepting that the team has different levels of experience. With prototyping, they used the action canvas to turn the ideas into actionable strategies for work. An example of the action was to remind everyone that every team meeting is a learning opportunity. This meant to help shift their mindset from a meeting that passes information to a meeting that teaches and learns from each other. What I've covered so far is what I've documented in this research. Hence, the next step for this research are as follows. There were 7 steps in the intervention procedure. I've left the last 3 steps to complete. This will allow me to use the questionnaire, observational, and workshop data to describe the effectiveness of the intervention so that I can address the research problem, then contextualize with the initial case study and survey outcomes, which eventually allows me to address my original research question. Last but not least, I want to thank my supervisors, Jane, Eva, and Anita, for their guidance, contribution, and support through the development and delivery of this work. Thank you!